What is up, everyone? Darkside Phil here. I saw Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice yesterday, and although it was far from the worst movie that I've ever seen, if anything, it just shows that when you're trying to be too ambitious, when there's maybe too many hands involved in a project, and you're trying to lay the groundwork for an entire cinematic universe in one movie, that you can really fuck up. Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, in my opinion, is a convoluted mess that could have been an amazing and great movie because during the movie, you see moments of greatness. In fact, I made a list of positives and negatives. The positives actually about half a page long, and if the movie had been composed of just that half a page of stuff, probably would have been damn good. The problem is, there's this other page and a half of negatives of things that were done poorly, things that could have been executed way better. Some might have been issues that the director caused, some might have been casting issues, some could have just been too many hands in the pot trying to make a plot that would spread out to be a Justice League world later on. Let's get into it one by one, and quite honestly, I think what I want to do is start with the positives so we can start on a high note. Warning, everyone, before I even get started, I just want to let you know, spoiler alert, I saw the movie, and yes, I am going to be talking about critical plot points about the movie, so if you don't want to be spoiled, do not watch this reactions video until you see the movie. Let's get started. Alright, so the first question I think on everyone's mind when it came to this movie, could Ben Affleck pull off Batman? And I am here to wholeheartedly tell you, yes, Ben Affleck actually does a great job as Batman. He looks the part. He worked out for this movie. He's roided up. He looks like the Bruce Wayne of the comics and of the animated series. He is the kind of the quintessential body double for Bruce Wayne. Now, I will say this, the only thing that doesn't really fit is his voice. It's a little bit high-pitched, kind of like mine. A lot of people say they see me talk and they're like, man, that voice does not fit your body. It's nasally, it's high-pitched, and I have to agree with Ben Affleck, it's kind of the same thing, but I think he did as well as he could in the role. He did his job. He was a good Bruce Wayne / Batman, and I give him a thumbs up. Jeremy Irons actually plays Alfred in this movie, and I have to say, again, another almost spot-on role. He's got the British accent, he's got that witty mannerism, he's got great delivery. We all know Jeremy Irons is a great actor, and being that there's been so many Alfreds over the years, this was definitely a good choice in my opinion, so good job for him as well. One surprising role that I was actually pleasantly surprised with was the inclusion of Lawrence Fishburne as the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet newspaper where Clark and Lois work. I think he was one of the standout actors of the movie. He was funny, he was witty, he did a great job with his lines. People in the theater had a great reaction to him. So again, Lawrence Fishburne, great actor, not surprised that he did well, and I was glad that he was in it. The actual plot line of how the world turns against Superman since the Man of Steel movie that happened a few years back is actually really interesting. I mean, the premise of, wow, when Superman was fighting Zod and those other Kryptonians, he caused massive damage, all around the major city of Metropolis. Probably thousands of people were killed in the fallout, which is funny because that was one of the major criticisms of Man of Steel. Little did we know that they would actually twist that criticism into the plot line of this movie. So the world kind of sees Superman as a rogue agent. He doesn't answer to any authority. If he sees a crime, he just goes off and does whatever he wants, and sometimes there's collateral damage. Why isn't he responsible, and why isn't he controllable? And the fact that Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, owned a business in Metropolis, and the fact that the people died during this big fight with the Kryptonians at the beginning of the movie really was cool. It brought out real reasoning of why Batman would want to stop Superman, thinking that Superman is just kind of out of control. He's going to do whatever he wants, and he has to do it for the good of mankind. I actually really like that plot, and even the worldwide paranoia, right, of someone who has a godlike power and superpower and not trusting that person. It's actually a real-life issue that could happen, and I like that plot line, and I like that's how they went about doing the Batman vs. Superman build-up at the beginning of the movie. The Batman character in action looks great in Batman vs. Superman. It's kind of the quintessential what you would expect from an action-packed film. He's got the CQC skills that you have seen in, comic books and movies and everything, where he can constantly fight off everyone who has different weapons. Even with guns, he's kind of dancing around them and doing stuff, which is kind of cool. He has Batmobile, he has Batwing, he has every kind of Bat gadget you could think of. They're all incredibly badass in this movie, and yes, you get to see them all in action. So that's really awesome. And like I said, I think already Affleck did a great job as Batman, but the way they portrayed Batman as an ultra badass everyman hero was really cool, and I like that. And you know what? Superman, when he was in action during combat, looked badass too. It's what you would expect. It's things that you've seen him in action in Injustice and in cartoon series and other movies. He's cool. He's super punching. He's, with just a touch of his hand, he can throw Batman all the way across a building. You know, he can do flying attacks and punches. It looks very much like what we would expect from Superman in realistic action, rather than, like, say, the Christopher Reeve Superman, who was just absolutely ridiculous. I like that. Finally, it looks like they finally got a movie where they got it right, and Superman looks cool too in action. By far, in my opinion, the best sequence of the movie was the actual Batman versus Superman fight, which, yes, it lasted about 10 minutes, so they didn't shortchange you, even though the movie had a running time of 2 hours and 30 minutes. 10 minutes of these two going toe-to-toe was pretty entertaining. Of course, it was really cool to see exactly what I expected to happen. Superman literally fell into Batman's trap, felt falsely secure. Batman maybe a little bit overwhelmed in a few parts of the fight, but eventually kind of getting the upper hand. I liked it. If anything, that sequence, that fight could go down in cinema history as one of the best superhero fights ever, and I have to say, very well executed. So, if that were the movie, it was the buildup of Batman versus Superman, where the world was fearing Superman because Superman seemed to be out of control and or could not be controlled by the world government, and Batman decides it's just in his power now, he has to stop Superman and take him out to save the world, and they had a showdown, and there was an ultimate winner and loser. That would have been a great movie. But that's not what they were going for, because as I said earlier, they took this opportunity to try to build up the entire DC cinematic universe with one film, and that's where it went completely off the rails, bonkers, batshit stupid. Let's start talking about the negatives. First off, I really can't believe they did it. There's another Batman origin fucking story in this movie. How many times do we have to see Batman's origins? If you've played any of the video games, if you've watched the animated series, if you watched the 1980s and 90s movies, if you watched the Christopher Nolan movies, if you watched any fucking thing that ever had to do with Batman, you know his parents got killed in Crime Alley by a mugger, and now he has no parents, and he fell into a cave with bats, and he was scared of the bats, so it became his... We fucking know! I mean, you'd have to be fucking stupid to not know the origin story of Batman. If I'm in a movie called Batman versus fucking Superman, I don't need to see the fucking origin of Batman again for the upteenth time. For once, can they treat the audience with respect and not think that you're just an uneducated retard sitting there in the fucking theater who needs to have everything fucking spoon-fed? No, it's stupid, and it's hilarious because there's other things in this movie that if you're not a diehard DC Comics fan, you'll have no idea what the fuck is going on. I'll reference that later, but the fact that they had to spoon feed us the origin of Batman for the 47th fucking time was insanely stupid. You know, I've seen some people say they liked Superman in this movie as a character. Nope, not going there. Sorry, he's terrible. Superman was just a crappy character in Man of Steel, and he's a crappy character here. He's fucking boring. Superman has two attitudes: stoic and superhero-ish, or angry Superman. Ugh, my eyes glow. I'm angry Superman. And that's the range of emotions that Superman has in this movie. He has no character development. It's hilarious because the scenes where he's actually just Clark Kent, where he has charisma and he's interacting with other humans inside of the Daily Planet, those scenes are better than any fucking scene where Superman has dialogue. He's a terrible character. They have not made him three-dimensional in these movies yet. He's just not good. He's terrible. He's boring. Every scene with him, I would rather watch paint dry. I'd watch grass grow. I'd go take a shit rather than fucking watch Superman talk in these movies. It's garbage. Now, one of the strongest criticisms I had about Man of Steel was, why is it that everything is so coincidental and everyone's in the right place at the right time that everything works out? And guess what? They fucking did it again. Lois Lane, again, is magically in the right place at the right time. Can you get me a helicopter, head of Daily Planet, to fly me over to where that bat signal is so I could just somehow help out Superman during that fight? You know what the editor of the Daily Planet should have said? Fuck you! You work for me! I'm not gonna fly you over there for free, you dumb bitch! But no! Oh, I'll get her a chopper, she magically shows up. Of course, she's the pivotal person who saves everyone and makes sure that Batman and Superman don't kill each other. Stupid, stupid, stupid. It's a cop-out. Having her in every fucking pivotal scene of the movie, including the final fight with superpowers and shit. She's in it. Why? What the fuck? Learn how to write, stop being hacks, and stop having Lois Lane in every fucking scene. It was never like that in the comics, never like that in any other movie. Get that shit out of here. On the flip side, what about Batman's sidekick Alfred? Oh, in this movie, he's a magic man, apparently. Because, apparently, he built and maintains the bat suits. He built and maintains the Batmobile. He's the mechanic. He's the one who runs all the computers behind the scenes when Batman's out doing stuff. He does everything. So, I guess he gave up his butler duties or whatever, and doesn't do any of that shit. Now he's just kind of like the sidekick henchman of Batman who does all the behind-the-scenes tech work. That's not Alfred. Now, I know that they were going for like a future version parallel universe Alfred where I guess in this movie Wayne Manor burnt to the ground because we don't know the history of what happened with Batman and Joker and all that in the past. But it needs to be said, it's incredibly unrealistic. Alfred is a fucking butler. How did he learn how to do all this shit in the few years, even if it was 20 years? How do you become a master technician of all this shit? It's completely unfeasible. It's unrealistic. It's stupid. They could have explained it better. Now let's talk about the actual resolution to the Batman vs. Superman fight, which in my opinion should have been the actual logical end of the movie. When Batman and Superman fight, they actually have like a legitimate thing to talk about. It's very important. It's in the background. It's a plot point. But they just start fighting. And Batman attacks Superman. Superman, instead of stopping the fight and saying, no, listen, here it is. I'm going to say it right now before you hit me again, stupidly walks into every trap Batman has. Then next thing you know, they're hitting each other. It's like, can you just like be two intelligent people for half a second and stop acting like two 5-year-old schoolyard boys who need to beat each other up? I mean, it's lame because the fight itself is great, but the reasons for the fight are so stupid. You can't talk to each other for 5 seconds before you beat each other to a bloody fucking pulp and maybe kill each other. It was really dumb, and for two iconic superheroes who you're supposed to look up to and say, wow, I really respect them, they're wise and they're intelligent. In this movie, they literally come off like kind of whiny brats, and it really is kind of unfortunate. And the stupid way the fight ends, obviously tons of spoilers in this video, but the fight ends because both Superman and Batman's mother's names are Martha. What? They couldn't think of anything better than a coincidence of a name. Now, I thought that Bruce Wayne / Batman knew who Superman was, right? He kind of knew about Lois Lane and all of that, so he already knew that Clark Kent's mother's name would have been Martha, so why is this a revelation at the end of the fight? Anyway, it makes no fucking sense. It's incredibly stupid. It's a really lame way to end the fight. And I groaned when the fight ended like that. I was like, we're gonna get a resolution. Oh no, both of our mother's names are Martha. Oh well, everything's fine now. Let's just get up and walk away and be friends. Sure. And now, for the things that I predicted just by watching the trailer and I was dead on correct about. Number 1, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Terrible. And I know a lot of people are praising her. Nope. Sorry, because that character in the movie was not Wonder Woman at fucking all. And a lot of people were afraid that this Wonder Woman was going to be like the new 52 Wonder Woman. It really wasn't. And it also wasn't the classic Wonder Woman. It was some fabricated character. Because number 1, she doesn't look like Wonder Woman. She looks like a supermodel. She doesn't have any muscle tone to her body. She didn't work out for this movie where she looked like she was anyone who could have any kind of combat, ability. She looks like a skinny, super duper skeleton supermodel. And in 95% of the movie, that's what she is. She's going around these dinner parties and fundraisers in dinner gowns. And by the way, she has a heavy accent. Wonder Woman doesn't have a heavy accent. That doesn't fit. So the look's wrong. The sound of her voice is wrong. Everything's fucking wrong. And then they put her in combat, and of course they make her look badass because of CGI. Sorry, I don't buy it. I think she's a terrible choice for Wonder Woman. I think they picked her solely on looks because they thought, oh, look, eye candy. People will watch the fucking movies when we come out with them later in the year. I think it's actually 2017 her movie comes out. It's bullshit. It's bad casting. And they fucking really copped out here instead of getting someone who would have fit the role of a big Amazonian strong woman. I seem to recall from the very first time that I saw a trailer, from the very first inkling that we had the casting, that when they said Jesse Eisenberg was going to be Lex Luthor, everyone collectively fucking groaned. That was years ago. And guess what? Everyone was right. It was terrible. He was one of the worst villains ever in a superhero movie. He was over the top. He didn't make any sense. It was funny because at the beginning of the movie, he starts off almost like a Mark Zuckerberg, which is the character he fucking played in The Social Network, and that's the role he's known for and he's praised for. He was kind of like an eccentric, rich, young kid who just wanted to get involved with worldly affairs and stuff like Mark Zuckerberg, and he almost seemed like he was doing things for the good of the world to protect them from Superman because he seemed like he was a loose cannon. And then by halfway through the film, he's got tics, he's got mannerisms, he's acting like a crazy asshole, he's killing people, he's doing all this, and you're like, no, I don't buy it. Sorry, Jesse Eisenberg, he's a nerdy kind of guy. That's the character he should play. He's not a fucking supervillain. It was insane miscasting. And there's people out there who are defending this decision and saying, but he's not Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor Jr. He's a new character. Wrong. This is the Lex Luthor of this film series. At the end of the movie, spoiler alert, they shave his fucking head bald, just like Lex Luthor in the Superman comics. He's supposed to be the real Lex Luthor, and he's terrible at it. He's awful, he's over the top, he's unbearable. Every word out of his fucking mouth, you want to punch his teeth out. Fucking terrible, 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 terrible. And in fact, the Luthor character is so bad that he ruins the movie single-handedly because everything around him makes absolutely no sense. Here comes some crazy, stupid things in the movie regarding Lex Luthor. Terrible, 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 terrible. Number one, why the fuck does Lex Luthor want to kill Superman and Batman anyway? The whole movie, he's kidnapping people, he's doing things behind the scenes to frame Superman and make him look like a bad guy. He's trying to pit Batman versus Superman. Why? What the fuck does he have to gain? At least in the comic books, they explain he was trying to become like a really rich, powerful guy, and he was afraid that Superman could ruin those plans, or maybe he could use Superman as a tool. In this movie, none of that. He's just fucking a dick. He's a dick. Terrible, 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 terrible. He wants to fuck people over. He wants to kill people. And if he can't get his way, he's just gonna fucking kill them all. But there's no actual viable explanation as to why he wants to stop Superman or kill Batman. None of it is ever fucking explained. It's also really never explained why he doesn't go after these people in their personal lives, because somehow he magically knows who they are, what their real names are. So why the fuck didn't he just go after them to begin with instead of waiting for this big climactic? It's terrible, 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 terrible. One big plot point of the movie is that the US military start working with Lex Luthor, and they give him access to the Kryptonian ship from Man of Steel, and they give him the deceased body of General Zod. They give him all this stuff. Why? It's never explained what the US military got out of working with Lex Luthor. It's a huge plot hole. It's never explained. It's never re-explained or re-examined. It's terrible, and it really is the reason why Lex has all the power in this movie, and it's terrible, 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 terrible. Alright. Let's do it. We gotta say it. The stupidest thing about Batman vs. Superman. Is it, you know, that they throw in 500 heroes and they have too much shit going on at once, and is it even Jesse Eisenberg's fucking terrible acting? No, no, it's the plot, because the critical plot point of the movie, for the third act, the final act of the movie, where all the heroes come together to fight an evil, is that Lex Luthor fools a Kryptonian computer system by faking fingerprints. This is not a joke. This is not like, oh wow, this is, it's just some elaborate way. No, there's nothing elaborate about this. He uses kryptonite to cut the fingerprints off of General Zod. He literally glues them to his own fucking fingers, like probably with a glue stick or fucking, Elmer's glue. And he goes into the Kryptonian ship and puts his hand down and activates the ship with the fake fingerprints. Now, from that moment on, the ship actually recognizes that he's not a Kryptonian. They even address him as Lex Luthor. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, all of the AI and all the computer security and everything in this ship that we actually saw from the previous movie, it's gone. Terrible, 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 terrible. It all just does what he says. He needed the fingerprints to turn the ship on, yet all of a sudden he completely assumes control of all the Kryptonian technology just like that because he faked fingerprints. No actual logical explanation. And in fact, one of the critical plot points, when Luthor looks like he's going to, spoiler alert, revive General Zod, the computer says to him, well, I can't do that because the Kryptonian Council said we could never do that again. To which Luthor says, well, they're all dead, so just do what I say. And the computer just says, okay. Of course, because as you know, today, right now, if your computer pops up with a security question, you just say, well, fuck all that. I don't give a shit about who put the security in place. Just bypass it anyway. Your computer says, okay, and it shuts down the security question and gives you access to whatever you want. Thumbs up. That's some of the worst fucking writing ever in any movie. It's laughable. It's embarrassing. The fact that this pivotal plot point of how Lex Luthor got the power to do the entire third act of the movie is a joke, and whoever wrote it should be fired. Whoever included it in the movie should be fired. Zack Snyder, I hate to say it, I love him as a director in some things like 300 and Watchmen. In this movie, the fact he let that shit in the fucking movie is terrible, and it ruins the whole fucking film from then on. Because, you see, if the movie had ended with the fight between Batman and Superman and the movie had a 90-minute runtime, it would have been a much better movie. But no, they need to set up the whole DC Comics cinematic universe. So they have to have references in the movie to Cyborg, to Aquaman, to The Flash, so that they can be in the Justice League movie that's being filmed right now. Oh, they gotta bring in Wonder Woman, so why would Wonder Woman be involved? We need a super-duper villain at the end to unite all the heroes, so there's a reason for Batman and Superman to not try to kill each other. So what is it? It's Doomsday! Yes, General Zod is revived and mutated, not explained how. He's just revived and mutated into Doomsday, and all the heroes have to fight Doomsday. And even though, I'll say this, some of the action in the sequence was good, the premise of it, that they couldn't just let the movie be about Batman and Superman, and the plotline of the world not trusting Superman. No, we have to throw every fucking possible thing in here so the heroes will unite as goody-goodies at the end of the movie, and we would be nice cliche bullshit. It was fucking terrible. And I'm sorry, Doomsday looks like shit. That's not Doomsday. Doomsday doesn't have the powers that he has in this fucking movie. It's a cop-out. It's a complete waste of the character because they could have had Doomsday coming in the future. They could have redone the death of Superman for real, in the real way it happened in the comics, with the heroes and everyone involved, and it would have been badass. They didn't go for that. Let's just fucking waste a whole character, waste Lex Luthor, waste all this shit so we can set up more movies and make more money in the future. Wow, you guys really are in it for the art, aren't ya? And the biggest joke of the entire movie for me is the ending. And again, spoiler alert, because, you know, obviously if you didn't see the movie, this is a huge spoiler. At the end of the movie, Superman dies. No. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, if anyone ever has followed DC Comics, you know Superman cannot die. They've tried everything. They fucking disintegrated him. They used heat. They used cold. They used radiation. They used kryptonite. They used astenite. They used dictonite. They used every kind of fucking possible thing. Nuclear bombs, world. Darkseid punched him in his nuts a few times. Nothing ever works. Superman cannot die. The only thing that happens to Superman, he goes into kind of a hibernative state while his body regenerates, and eventually he revives. And sometimes he revives and he has weird different powers until he gets more sun energy in him or whatever. There's been various different things they've done in the DC universe with this. Superman can't die. And the bottom line is we know they're setting up Justice League. You know Superman is not going to die. So the whole ending of the movie is bullshit. Bullshit. You know Superman's not dead, which, by the way, they retcon it at the very last scene of the movie. So it's like, duh, it's stupid. It's a waste of time. Like, anyone who knows what's going on and knows the Superman character is going to be so pissed when you see it. You're like, we know he's not fucking dead. You wasted my time. Why is this in the movie? They didn't have to do that. And now my final point. Okay, I really feel that when they made this movie, they didn't know who they were trying to appeal to. I think they were trying to appeal to too many audiences at once. If you're trying to appeal to a widespread audience, oh, we need the Batman origin in there again, right? Because people might not know who Batman is, and we need this in there, character development of Superman and all that. But then they also had to introduce a million other characters so that you'll understand who they are when the Justice League movie comes out, whenever it comes out, right? But the problem is they also had cool references in the movie to alternate universes, to plotlines from DC Comics. And one of the things that was in the movie that shocked me, that Leanna, my girlfriend, didn't understand any of, because it's never fucking explained. There is about a 5-minute segment where they go into a dream sequence where Batman is in an alternate apocalyptic future. The world has been taken over by Darkseid, the big baddie of the DC universe. You could see the big flame pillars coming out of the earth. He's got the fucking parademons coming down and snatching up people. And Superman apparently works for Darkseid in this alternate world. Then all of a sudden, they show the Flash in a time rip, basically warning Batman, saying Lois Lane is the key. You know, make sure this alternate reality future doesn't happen. You need to help to stop this or whatever. And then it never comes into play in the whole fucking movie. Batman never does anything in regards to Lois Lane in this fucking movie. So the whole scene makes no sense. Anyone who doesn't know DC Comics doesn't know who Darkseid is, doesn't know about the parademons, doesn't know about the apocalyptic shit. They don't know that Flash can run so fast that he can travel through time and create time rips like that. None of it makes any sense. So we're gonna make a movie, so you're so dumb you don't know the origin of Batman, we'll teach it to you, but then we're gonna include the most obscure fucking references from the DC universe that unless you're a hardcore DC fan, you wouldn't understand. This movie is bi-fucking-polar. Batman vs. Superman could have been a great fucking movie if they knew what they were doing, if there was someone coherent who edited the script, who kept it together. It almost feels to me like this is two movies. Like, they had a plan for Batman vs. Superman, but then they were going to have this movie where Lex Luthor pits them against each other later, or behind the scenes orchestrates this thing and tries to take over the Kryptonian technology, but they said, we can't do that, we can't do two movies, we have to do one. So slam them all the fuck together and make a convoluted, annoying, fucking piece of shit. And that's what this movie is. I'm sorry. There's all this great stuff. Ben Affleck, great job, right? Jeremy Irons, great job. Lawrence Fishburne, the fight is great. Batman looks like a badass. The actual action scene at the end of the movie where they're fighting Doomsday looks like, wow, this could be great potential if they're actually fighting Darkseid later on as the Justice League. But there's so much shit that's piled into this piece of garbage movie that pisses me the fuck off because I knew it. I fucking knew this years ago. I said Eisenberg, terrible. This Wonder Woman looks terrible. If fucking Doomsday's in it, terrible. And I was 100% correct. Fuck this shit. So, those are my perfectly calm reactions to the Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice movie. What did you think about the movie? Go ahead and leave a comment on the description of the video. Warning to everyone, yes, the comments will have spoilers about the movie since this whole video had spoilers. Please share your thoughts. That's it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you later for more of my reactions. Terrible, 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 terrible.